pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make sure you turn your mics on, please. And we'll go with the roll call to begin with here.
Councilmember Joe Greenberg.
Here.
Dan Bryan.
Here.
Linda Blake.
Here.
Rainville.
Present.
Mayor Pilon.
Here.
And Liz Stockman. Here. And Wayne.
Here.
This is the September 2019 regular city council meeting. It's Tuesday, September 10th, 7 p.m. And if you haven't signed in, please sign in the back. Our agenda is available in the back there. If you want to speak on the open floor items, there's a sign-up sheet in the back. And we do ask that all cell phones be silenced. And Lori, could we change that sign back there to please silence cell phones rather than demanding they be shut off? Maybe it's a little more friendly. All right. And so we approve the agenda. I have a couple of things here. Under planning and zoning, item B, if we could add the consultant checklist for discussion. And I would like to pull for discussion from the consent agenda, item 4B, the claims, and item 4D, the reimbursement policy. And Liz, did you have anything else you were going to talk about for new items that Gustafson Corner and the
Right, the Gustafson lot for sale. And it's, if you want to talk about the issue on Jasper Street, you could add that, otherwise.
yeah, I think we should, do you have information on the,
I don't have it on the PowerPoint.
is that the
but
BA, you mean on BA?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, not related to the fire.
Oh, what's the one on Jasper?
The one we talked about today with the
Oh,
accessory building.
yes, yes. Do we have any new information on that?
No, but I can explain the situation to everyone.
I think
maybe.
it'd be good to get it out. So,
And then, yeah. And then I can send an email later.
so you want to do that under planning and zoning then?
Sure. Item C. D.
C would be Jasper. We've already got the corner lot under Council A. And do you want to talk about BA at all, or hold off? on
Sure,
that?
we can just briefly touch on it, and then, again, I'll send some detailed info later.
All right. Any other amendments to the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as amended. I'll make that motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I second it.
And we have motion and second. Any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commander Heath, you're up. Do we have our summary sheets? We haven't, last month or this month, we haven't gotten our summary sheets.
Okay. I thought I saw the email go out to the city, but
If I may, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan?
getting the Friday update, but I haven't seen the
The spreadsheet.
spreadsheet.
okay. My apologies, when the calls for service were sent to me, I thought I saw the city on that email as well. So
We didn't get them last month, and I haven't seen them this month, so.
I will look and see if that's on my end.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
my apologies. If you'd like, I can scroll through my stuff right now and send it to you if you'd like them now. Or I can do it when I,
We'll have Lori check first,
okay,
and if she doesn't have it, you'll ask him and we'll get it
Okay.
sent out.
all right. Well, my apologies on that. I'm sorry if there was any confusion. Just for everyone's clarification, last month we had 179 calls for service in Now Then. I was a little bit concerned looking through some of the calls for service to bar none. I had a conversation with the mayor. I came up and was at the farmer's market a couple of weeks ago and was able to chat with the mayor. But some of the things that we're seeing, some of it's concerning where we're having multiple people fighting at a time and we're tying up, not that that's an issue, but it's using quite a bit of resources. There's times when we have 3 to 5 squad cars there on calls for service. And sometimes we'll have one event. I noticed this last month, we'd have one event and then a couple hours later, we're having a whole nother one where we're responding out there. In one of the incidents, we've got multiple people fighting, and we've got one client assaulting another client. We've got clients assaulting staff members. Well, one of the cases was actually a client picked up and body slammed a staff member. And we've got kids that are damaging.
Now, these are 12 to 17-year-olds.
Correct. And we've got kids that they're using whatever they can find as weapons out there. They're breaking windows and doing damage to the property out there. If there's vehicles from the facility that are there, they're breaking them, snapping mirrors off the vehicles. And just as I had spoken with you earlier, Mayor, it's concerning, that trend. And I just don't want to see it continue and get worse. I really don't want to see somebody get hurt more than they already are. So, and it's difficult, like we've talked about. We've had many conversations, and it doesn't seem like even after all the conversations with the staff, much has changed there. So long term, I'm not sure exactly what the answer is, but we'll continue.
Well, one of the things we discussed at the farmer's market there, for the council's direction, I guess, at one point, Liz, we had asked if we could check into under what CUP they're operating. Because when we originally became a city, we were under the impression, as was Oak Grove, that was Oak Grove Facilities. So I'm not sure there actually is a Now Then CUP that they operate under, because the original sheriff's calls were all going to Oak Grove, and that somebody in Oak Grove realized that the buildings were slightly over the line in Now Then, and that was changed. So originally, the sheriff's department in the city of Oak Grove thought it was all Oak Grove Facilities. So if there's a CUP in place, it's probably Oak Grove if they have anything. So with the council's approval, I would make a motion that we would direct staff to look into, and I'll direct it to Lori and you assign it as you want. But that we have staff look into the specifics of any CUP that exist, if there is one, so that we can start with what are the conditions of use. If there isn't one, that's one avenue we go down. If there is one, then we hold them to the conditions. And if that isn't sufficient, we start with what can we legally require of them,
Right.
and then sit down with the Department of DHS
Yep.
and have that discussion there, because they're the ones that are holding the licenses and permitting now. So.
And that was my commentary, and when I was having the conversation with the mayor, just at some point, if the city has given them the ability to do business here under some type of agreement, we should probably look at what that looks like, and are they holding up their end of the bargain? Because it just.
Well, I have a motion. We'll see if we got a second, then we'll finish.
Oh, I apologize. I just wanted to.
A motion and a second. Anybody else want to discuss further?
Well, please explain CUP, I don't know.
Conditional use permit. So when you operate
Yeah, I know what that is.
in that area, that's a rural residential designation
Right.
up there,
Yeah.
they're running a business. And so if they don't have a conditional use permit to run a business up there, then we have legal recourse.
Can I ask another question,
Yes,
Mr. Mayor? When does it become these kids become the it's too much for bar none. They should be behind in a closed, locked.
Well, see, this is a different thing now because they've changed their operation there. They used to have people that were under the Department of Corrections.
Right.
They've dropped that because the Department of Corrections was cracking down, so now they've gone to Health and Human Services.
Oh,
And
and
so
they
they're
thought
operating
that'd
under
be better.
DHS. And they don't have corrections clients anymore. They only have people with, what do you call it, emotional issues.
Oh, dear.
And they currently have, up until August, have been running treatment for 12 to 17-year-olds. In August, they started 6 to 11-year-olds. So what we're saying is it's not effective, whatever they're doing.
No.
And in some of the cases, when they call riot, when they put in a call for riot, every force responds. And that's why you'll have multiple departments, multiple squads. St. Francis, the Sheriff's Department, I think Highway Patrol's been involved. It's everybody comes in.
Okay.
And so it's getting very expensive.
Right.
And it doesn't appear that what they're doing is effective.
I agree.
And so we need to pursue whatever we can to get them to manage their facility properly or move it somewhere else.
Mr. Mayor? I understand, and we completely understand the difficulty of dealing with some of the people in in that population, and that's not our, we're not saying that these people don't belong here, but our concern is it's not, whatever, like the mayor said, whatever program they're working does not seem to be effective based on the level of calls for service and the level of activity that's there, and then what's happening during those incidents. That's the concern, is we just need to get that.
In our meeting last month with them, we suggested, 2 months ago, we suggested private security, that if they're going to have this many calls for disruption, they should have somebody on site that can minimize it on site. Because what happens is they get out of hand, and then they call for the Sheriff's Department. You know, if they follow them off the property, and once they leave the property, then they call us. And so if they're going to be reaping the rewards, they charge good money to treat patients there. We felt that rather than just put the burden on the cities to pay for that, and it's a lot of burden on the Sheriff's Department. If it gets to a certain point, they have to run people over to Lino Lakes, and that takes a long time to process. So it's tying up a lot of resources, and ultimately now then residents are paying for it because our radio calls affect our sheriff's contract.
Sure.
So we've had multiple meetings. They've had staff turnover. They've had management turnover.
Right.
They've now changed which agency of the state that they're answering to, working with. So I will call for the vote if there's no other. So, all right, so all those in favor of the motion to have staff investigate the conditions of the CUP at Bar None? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we will look into that. Lori will direct it and it'll respond. And then we'll see where we go next.
Okay.
You know, I think the frustrating thing when we went out there, Lori, if you heard the same thing I did, it's basically give us 6 months to a year to get the new program in place. And for what we're saying, we don't have that. They don't have that kind of time.
Yeah, things will continue to get worse. And just, I could see at least if they came to the city with a plan of this is how we want to get to this goal. We want to see things improve. Here's our goal and here's our plan to get there. But right now, all we're hearing is just give us some time, basically. And that's not a great goal and not a great thing to hear. It doesn't lead you to believe that there's a great plan to make it all come together.
I think 10 years is enough.
And I was just gonna say, as long as I've been in this area in law enforcement, it truly has been a place that has generated a lot of issues. And in my entire time here as the liaison to now then, it's always been a topic.
Well, obviously, I mean, that's why we put the supplementary report on the spreadsheet was, there were a couple of things that were concerning, and that was number one. We wanted to see how that broke out, because was falling into the other categories, and it was deceptive as to what was really going on in now then, because so much was happening at Bar None.
Right.
All right, so sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to get that in while we.
That's okay. And I just wanted to highlight a few calls for service that I wanted to point out, and I like to try to point out things where our staff are coming out here and being proactive, and just to give a flavor so everybody sees and kind of hears what's going on. An interesting call, or on the 11th, one of our deputies was driving through Twin Lakes Park on routine patrol. Stopped a vehicle that had 4 occupants as it was in there after hours, and identified all the people involved and ran them for warrants and things like that to see if they had any active warrants for their arrest. And one of the occupants of the vehicle, a 36-year-old male from outside of the area, had 4 different felony warrants for his arrest. Wow. One of them was for a probation violation. That was for possessing pornographic works involving minors. Then he was also had a warrant for being in violation of his predatory offender status, and he also had a felony narcotics warrant. So it's just and I only bring that up for 2 reasons, because you just don't know who's around your community, and I like to showcase that even if people don't see us all the time and don't think we're out here, our folks are out here, and they are looking for people that are doing things they shouldn't be, and we do find them. So I just try to like to point some of those things out.
The other people in the vehicle, were they of age?
Yes. Yep, it was kind of odd. It didn't make sense why all these people were together, but yeah, they were all grown-ups. And that's one of the things that we look at right away if you see somebody that has that history, is you're looking at what else is going on in the area. Why would this person be here at this time of night? You know, is there something else going on that's related to their past history or things like that? But there was nothing this time. So, and then on the 23rd at 3:20 in the morning, one of our deputies was on routine patrol and found 2 males trying to enter a code to get into the storage area over here, and it caught him out of. He said, well, it's 3:20 in the morning, that's out of place. So he stopped in and started talking to the gentleman. And they were ready to give up because they couldn't get coded in. And he ran one of the gentleman's names, and it didn't look right to him. The physical descriptions didn't match. And ultimately, one of the 2 men had a felony warrant for his arrest out of Beltrami County. And another misdemeanor warrant for his arrest out of Anoka County, and he'd given the deputy a false name. But just again, it's just one of those things that there's people out here at all hours of the day and night doing things, and there was nothing wrong at the business. The deputies checked and made sure that everything was okay there, but obviously they didn't have the right code to get in there, and at least the one person had a pretty active past that was still following him pretty closely. So he was arrested and jailed, and as was the other gentleman from the other call I mentioned. He was arrested and jailed on his warrants. And then on the 27th, deputies responded to a single vehicle crash. That was up on Norris Lake Road at Cleary Road. When the deputies got there, they determined that the vehicle was going eastbound on Norris Lake Road, just west of Cleary Road, went off of the roadway on the south side, down into the ditch, back up over Cleary Road, and then went airborne and rolled at that point. The driver in that was a 20-year-old male, not from the city. Showed signs of impairment. Our deputies arrested him, took him to jail, and when he did do a test there, he was a 0.19 alcohol concentration, so more than twice the legal limit. And that was at like 11 p.m. So it wasn't like it was some crazy hour of the day or night. And I bring those things up just because we've talked about it before. You just never know who's out there, and somebody could have just been driving on Cleary Road coming up to that stop sign, you know, and this guy happens to be coming through. So very fortunate he wasn't injured, which has amazed me throughout my career. Some crashes like that, they can be very crazy and violent, and people who are impaired seem to
Walk away.
They seem to just survive just fine in some of them. Some of them they don't, but this one he did, which I'm glad for. I'm not certainly glad he wasn't injured, but just a little snapshot of what's out there sometimes and what we see out there and who's floating through the community when we don't know, you know. So that's all I have.
Well, if you could extend our appreciation to the deputies involved, and we continue to thank you and the department for the service in this area. And so we are grateful, and every little bit helps. It's,
I will, and it's very nice to see some of our deputies that are getting, we had a turnover and some of our night shift deputies were very young, but it's now starting to, you can tell that a lot of them are getting to know the city better and know what's in place, what's out of place, the people that maybe up to a little less than good, and they and that's what happens as a police officer. When you work in an area long enough, you start to know what fits, what doesn't, and that's when it actually you start to get an investment in the community you're working in, and you take pride, and you don't want people to come in and victimize the good people that you know in that community. And it's nice to see that we're really hitting that mark. So I like, as a commander, I like to see that. And if I was a citizen here, I'd be very happy that the people take that type of care in their community, because it, unfortunately, even other places I've worked, it doesn't always happen. So I like to see it. I'm very happy about it.
I will say there have been times I've been out doing legal things at night where deputies will stop. And a number of times last year campaigning where they would get to recognize you, but they're always coming to see what's going on. And certain deputies would see who I was, check in and go on. But after one of the farmers markets this summer, I was talking with somebody over here, just on the street going into Bill's, and the door was open, and I'm not even sure where he came from, but he turned around and was like, "Is everything okay here?" I mean, he stuck his nose in it. It looked innocent enough, but he came over to make sure who we were, what was going on, and we appreciate it. They're anything looks the least bit suspicious, they're popping up and they're getting involved, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, I will relay the message.
Any questions from the council to the commander?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
To Commander Heath, I will be forwarding to Lori a request for the speed wagon. We had Anoka County Highway Department had a meeting here last Thursday to talk about the improvements on Cleary Road between Viking going south down to 47. And that meeting went really well. Everybody was excited about the road construction. Their issue was the speed on Cleary. Sure. And so we talked a couple different issues. And so I got a response back from Joe McPherson from the county. I will send that to Lori and then ask Lori to contact you in regards to the speed wagon.
Yeah, if you want to email me, I can coordinate that on my end.
I'll get that email to her tonight. So.
The other thing that came up at that Clear Road discussion was there appears to be, as you come off of 47 going north on Cleary, you come in a 35 zone, I think, around the corner there, and then you hit an open stretch where there's the ability to pass, and then it goes to the no pass striping. And so what's happening is a lot of people are taking advantage of it to gun it and try and pass in that area. And the residents are saying they're passing school buses. And we've asked if they are passing with a stop arm out, get a license. The buses should be able to report that. But if you could pass along to the patrol officers that's an area that mornings going south, evenings going north, between 47 and Viking in particular, there seems to be a lot of speed violations and passing violations. So if they could kind of track while the school bus is around, we certainly want to put a dent in that before something serious happens.
We'll do that. I'll have it put on our roll call sheet so all the deputies see it and have them do extra patrol there and note the times.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Anything else for the commander? All right, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And were there any floor items?
No fluoride.
No floor items, all right. So we'll go to the consent agenda, the council minutes from 8/13, resolution 2019-58, authorizing acceptance of a donation from A&B Welding and Construction to maintain or enhance the ice rink. Generous offer from them for $500.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll go to the finance. Chris, could you shut that one off on the podium, please? All right. So, we have a memo from Ms. Yeager and a resolution and a PowerPoint. And I had a couple of questions. I don't know if any of the other council members had questions on that. I discussed it with Lori Strike earlier today. There appears to be some inconsistency in some numbers, which might affect our percent increases. And there's a couple of other things. So I want to address it. Two things. One, the specifics and accuracy of the reports we received. And then two, the narrative that was presented in the PowerPoint. One of the things that I've had many discussions with mayors and council people across the state. I've talked with the county assessor. I've talked with people from the legislature, and nobody really can give a good, concise presentation of how the tax system works. And so when we start throwing in things like tax rate and the tax capacity, tax rate, tax levy, and in the presentation and in the paperwork we have, levies used in different ways, because this levy is, whether it's 2 or 2.5 or 2.6, and this levy's 5.5, and then we've got a tax rate. And so there's two things. One is the accuracy of the information we have here, and whether it changes our numbers enough that we need to revisit that. The second one is, at some point we need help as a council. I'll speak for myself, and I'm going to assume most of the council is going to be in the same boat. We need to understand how this impacts our residents, you know, what the tax rate means, the tax capacity means, and how our levy increase affects that.
Okay.
So there's two things that are really going on here. One is education, one is, I'm just not certain our numbers are precise enough to vote on tonight.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if you'll allow me to go through the presentation and then interject with any questions when I get to the points where you think that you have some questions, that would be perfect.
Okay.
And so just to introduce myself again, my name's Lori Yeager. I've been hired by Lori to assist with the financial management of the city of Now Then, and to mentor her in learning the process of the budgets and financial reporting. So every year, annually, the city of Now Then is required by law to adopt a preliminary levy and a proposed budget and submit that information to the county, so that the county can then turn around and take that information and send out truth in taxation notices to all of its occupants or residents or property owners in the county of Anoka County. And so this needs to be done by September 30th. And so we, as a council and as staff and hired consultant, met a couple of times in August and discussed our proposals for the levy and what the city really needs to complete and accomplish all of its operations, and also complete and do any capital improvements or anything like that there is planned for the future. And in addition to that, you're required to also levy for your debt so that you can continue to pay your debt as it comes and matures in the following year. So this year, the overall increase, including your debt service and your operations, is a 5.5%, approximately 5.5% increase in your total levy. And how that impacts an average residential taxpayer is that if you're living in the city of Nowthen and you own a property that's worth about $350,000, you're probably going to end up paying about $850 a year in just city taxes only. I have not calculated out school district or anything else, or the county, because I do not know at this point what their proposed levies are. And so with that in mind, this is about a $70 increase per year for that type of property owner. Now, depending on what your value is on your property, that number is going to fluctuate tremendously for each individual property owner. And there's no way I could go through and identify all properties. I'm just giving you an example of what it is. And what it is it's about...
So let me ask at this point, because we're kind of jumping ahead of some of what I was looking at, but so about the...
I haven't even started the presentation yet.
Yeah.
I'm only on the memo.
Okay.
So with that in mind, I talked about here, you know, that the action that's requested of you tonight is to approve a resolution number 2019-60, approving the proposed budget for 2020 and a preliminary levy for 2020. And those are, like I say, proposed and preliminary. You can always reduce your levy in the future. You cannot increase it after you've submitted your preliminary levy. And you can always change your budget, but it should balance when you complete your budget every year. It should be a balanced budget. So
let me back up. What I really want to start with
Sure.
is I appreciate you being available
Sure.
to Lori. I appreciate Lori recommending this, and I appreciated the way you two have worked together. I think that you certainly have both seen what you started with, and without besmirching anybody, it was a challenge.
Yeah.
It was a challenging time this summer because we had a bond issue, you know, things we really haven't been doing as a city. So that took a lot of effort. Lori's new in the position. We've had vacations. We've had a change in software. So first and foremost, in light of anything we might ask about or question, I think I let the council speak for themselves, but I think I can speak for the council. We are very appreciative of the work that you two have done together on this. And this is the first time in 11 years we haven't been the ones going through all the details of the budget. And sometimes that makes us nervous because that's what we've always done before.
Sure.
But we appreciate the fact that it's finally getting straightened out. Things are getting put in categories that they should be put in. So it's a learning opportunity for us too, because we just haven't seen it done this way before.
Sure.
So we will have questions because we only know 10 years of doing it the old way.
Sure.
And now we're trying to do it the correct way.
Sure.
So thank you both for the work you've done to this point.
Yeah.
And the questions we may have, it's a transition for us.
Yeah, I totally understand.
But we appreciate it, and we're so glad that in months and years to come, to know that all this work is a great foundation for us going forward. I think that the visibility of what's going on, the accountability, the accuracy, and the repeatability is going to be great for all of us. And it's going to get easier eventually.
Sure.
But, so we do thank you for the work both of you have done, so.
No problem. Okay, so with that in mind, included in your packets is a complete budget for 2020, not only for the general fund, but also for the recycling center, also for your debt service funds, and also for your capital and equipment funds. So we've included everything, not just general fund. So if I can just go ahead with the presentation, and then you can interject with questions as we go through the process, that would be great. So I've already mentioned the whole, deadline for the county as far as submitting the preliminary levy. Also, this evening, you're recommended to, or you're required to set a public meeting date to actually, have an open discussion with anybody in the public that wants to talk about the budget, and then also to adopt your final levy and budget at that time. And what is recommended here is Tuesday, December 10th at 7 p.m. And that's also included in the resolution that we've done for this evening, so.
Now, for what it's worth, in years past, I think because that has to be done after 6 o'clock.
Uh-huh,
I think by statute, it's.
right, it's after 6, yeah.
So we've typically started that early in case anybody wants to have a discussion.
Okay,
And we post it with the council meeting to start immediately after that meeting.
okay,
So, again, it depends on if the council members can make it. But that way, if people come, we have an hour to go through any questions. If they don't come, we just start our meeting earlier, and
okay.
Linda gets to go home early.
We would need to change the resolution, because I've included it in the resolution for
We
7.
don't have to do it, I'm just saying that's what we've done in the past.
7
so.
p.m. So, I don't know if you have a lot of people that attend your meetings for your budget, if it's.
Typically, we haven't.
Historically, and I would just go by history, if you don't have a lot of people, 7 o'clock is probably, works out fine. You tell me what time, and, that's what's gonna be in the resolution.
Council want to stick with 7 then? All right, stick
I
with 7.
think we can leave it.
Okay. All right. So in our meetings in August, we met and talked about operations and things like that, and came up with a proposed or a preliminary levy amount that would cover all of our general fund operations and also any capital improvements that we would need, and also our debt service. And so if you look at the total levy, the proposed levy is now at $1,571,350. And what that change is a 5.48% over 2019. And as you can see here, it's $33,101 increase in the general fund operating and capital improvement levy. And it's a $48,533,000 increase in the debt service levy. As you can see there, the operations levy went up 2.5%, whereas the debt levy went up 33.6%. So as a result of the new improvements in 2019, when we issued debt for our street improvement projects.
So those, the 33 and the 48 are in the $1,571,000?
That is correct. That $1,571,350 is the total levy. And we talked about this too, is that we were planning for the appropriate amount. We did reduce the amount that Lori and I came with regarding a net levy increase. We were able to reduce that during our work sessions, so we do have it down quite a bit further than what we originally came with. And this page shows.
So I have a question on that. On the back page of the resolution,
Yes,
we have a levy increase of 2.61, and in the PowerPoint, we have a levy increase of 2.0.
so the 2.5, I was just rounding, it's not the exact, the exact levy increase is the one that is on,
I'm sorry, I'm
The
talking
spreadsheet.
about the budget part.
okay,
So on the back page, you've got the levy increase of 261,
right,
And this is the general fund budget, right?
That's correct.
And here, the general fund budget at 16590, which is the same as this, 1659090.
Uh-huh.
This one says 261 increase, and this one says 2.0.
So this page here in the presentation is talking about total expenditures. And the levy increase is only the amount that's being increased on just the property taxes. So in addition to property taxes in your revenues, you have licenses and intergovernmental revenues and charges for services, and all of that all adds up to your total revenues that you have available. Now, in those revenues, some of them might have decreased, some of them might have increased. And so you have a total revenue increase of 2%. You also have a total expenditure increase of 2%. What I'm showing you here is just your expenditure side, which is going up 2%. It's going up $32,881. And you can see there is how those changes are being reflected in your budget. And this is just pages, a summary. It's just trying to give you a big picture, kind of look at what's going on. The detail would be in the actual packet with all of the budget spreadsheets. So this is just for presentation purposes only. But it is, the numbers are accurate. The total budget is $1,659,090. And that is a 2% increase over last year. Now your levy is going up more than that because your levy is smaller than 2%. Your levy in the general fund is only $1,380,450. So it's not as large as your operating budget because you have other revenues that support your operations. Okay?
Okay, so that's the 261 is on the property tax.
Yes. Just for operations in the general fund. That does not include your debt service levy. Like I said before, your debt service levy is included in the $1,571,000 or whatever it was that I had up earlier for the levy. Let's see, where is it? So there's two components in your levy, in your property tax levy. There's your operations and capital. The $1,571,350 includes both your operations and your debt levy. I believe your debt levy is 190 some thousand. I don't have that right in front of me yet, but I think it's further in the
192.9.
Yeah.
192.9.
Yep. And your general fund levy is $1,380,450. It's not that exact amount, slightly less than that, because I've also budgeted in that number for delinquent tax collections. And we're not re-levying for those. Those we just collect, and nobody's ever budgeted for it. I'm budgeting for it now, and I put in $2,000. So in addition, this $1,380,000, the actual levy amount is $1,378,450. Just for your information.
Well, that was one of the questions.
So your operating expenditures in your general fund actually went up $137,000 or 10% over last year. And how we got the increase from 10% down to 2% is that we have reduced the transfers out by $105,000. And that's how that number got down there. Well, 104,730 to be exact. So, and these are the changes listed here that are being proposed in the detail for your general fund. And again, your proposed budget can be changed through, we talked about having more meetings through, up and through November, and your preliminary levy can go down but you need to, you cannot go up. And so it's good to set a levy at an amount that you feel comfortable with, that you can get enough money to continue your operations, and then you can amend your budget if you want to try to reduce your levy in the future. So with this levy, residential properties will see about a 9 or 10% increase in their city tax liability. And the reason for that is that a lot of the properties in now then have seen an increase in their market values. Their market values have gone up about 6.7% overall. In addition to that, we have fiscal disparities, and we have a contribution amount and a distribution amount. Your amount that you contribute, I believe, I should get to that slide before I start talking about it.
Let's talk about this one for a second, because this is one of those that's going to be hard to explain to people, because
Okay.
in years past, we've never had this thorough an understanding. We go in and we say, our tax levy is going up 0 to 2%.
Sure.
And we've never taken into account the total with the debt service.
Okay.
They always treated that separately.
Okay.
So we always were really proud of coming in very low,
Okay.
and they just said the debt service is what it is, but
Sure.
that's not really, you're not increasing your tax levy based on that, that's separate. So when you see something at 5.5, and then it comes down here, it says, but residents are going to see between 9 and 10% in their city tax liability
Right.
as a result of the increased levy.
Right.
So what we need to be able to explain is, we just went up 5.5%, but you're gonna get a 10% because of the levy.
Yeah. It's
How
not only-
does it turn into 10%? And
Right.
the second part of that question is, if property values are going up, and so everybody's taxes will be going up, the county's gonna get more, the school district's gonna get more.
Only if they levy more. So your taxes change based on what what the city levies and what the county levies and what the school district levies. And also by what your property values go up compared to other communities if you're in all of Anoka County. Now, just with the city of Now then, you're only dealing with what other properties in your city are changing, how they're changing. So say residential properties are going up 6.8%. Commercial and other properties are maybe only going up 2%. And so their property tax share might be going down a little while residential's are going up because their values are changing by more. And so it is very, every year, it's very fluid, it changes a lot. And it's not just based on your levy. There's also other factors, not only the levy, but also outside factors like I'm trying to tell you about is the fiscal disparities. We're in a pool with the entire metropolitan area, and in that pool, the city of Now then contributes a certain amount, and then that pool, you get money back from it. Well, this year, you're getting less money back, but you're contributing more because the values in Now then for commercial properties are increasing more, or you have more value than you did previously compared to the rest of the whole metropolitan area. So it's not an easy understanding. You have to look not at just the values in your city, it's how the rest of the metropolitan area affects you.
And this is where we need to have a seminar for the residents, or the councils begin with and the residents, because it's hard. I've tried to explain this. We're giving a 5.5% increase, but you're gonna see a 10% increase
Right,
based on our levy. That's what it says here.
right.
And yet you would think with property values going up, that there would be more money coming in if there's a,
The money coming in is only what you levy, that's it. The property values have nothing to do with the money coming in. You determine how much money comes in.
okay, so if their
So-
property value increases 6.8%,
Right,
and they see a 10% increase in their taxes,
right.
we're only asking for 5.5, where's the rest of it going?
So what is happening, it's not that the rest of it is not going anywhere else. You're getting all the money. What's happening is that the values of residential properties are not changing at the same rate as the other values in the community. And so residential properties are probably picking up a little bit more tax than the commercial properties were last year or this year. And also another factor is that you get money from, you get a reduction in what your actual levy is from the county based on fiscal disparities. And so your amount that you're getting, and if you'll allow me to get out of this presentation, I can pull up my spreadsheet that calculates this out, because that's the only way I can explain it.
Okay.
So
Am I the only one that's been a bit lost?
I think it's very confusing, and I don't know that you need to know all the specifics except for that.
Well, we need to know how to explain it to
Right.
people that are paying.
Right,
That's
and
the-
I understand that. And the reason is that your fiscal disparities contribution last year was 171,000, this year it's 190. Last year you got 165,000, this year you're only getting 137,000. And so that impacts how much you get as a credit from the state or from the county that offsets your levy that you are charging. So your levy
Getting less from the county.
your levy before taxes or before credits is 1,571,350. Your levy after your credits, which have to do with those fiscal disparities, is 1,433,000. Last year, your levy after credits was only 1,003,000. So there's a $100,000 difference there, even though your levy actually only went up 81,000. You're seeing a $110,000 change because of the credits. You're getting less credit from being in that metropolitan area. That's the only way I can explain it. is that-
And that fiscal disparities, is there a nutshell version of, is it our overall property values? Is it?
It's based on commercial values, not only in your city, but in the entire metropolitan area.
Because we compare so closely to Minneapolis.
Nope, and you can't do that. It's Bloomington, and it's everywhere. It's the 7-county area. It's not just Minneapolis. It's 7 counties. And that's
Well,
why
I understand that.
it's
Of
very
the 7
complex.
counties, it's just, there's not much we compare to, so.
Somebody down at the state figures all that out for you.
Well, it's gonna come up at the meeting this
Yeah.
week.
And that's basically why their property taxpayers are seeing an increase in higher than 5.5%, because your credit was reduced. What you're getting as far as a credit, so.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
to Ms. Yeager, and so, and that's really all,
There's nothing
we
you
don't
can
have,
do.
we can do it, we
No.
don't have, it's all out of our control.
That's out of your control.
So we're looking at, so we're looking to say a 10%. Half is us, half is based on the county and them
The
reevaluate.
7 metropolitan area.
Well, I'm not talking the disparities, I'm just,
Oh, no, it is, that's
It
what
is
it
in
is.
there? Okay,
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
Not the
Has
county,
nothing
it's
to do
the
with the county.
disparities.
Okay.
It's fiscal disparities, yes.
okay.
In
And
the
they
7
could
counties.
see certainly more than that
Okay.
if the county decides they wanna go up 5 or 10%.
Correct, but we only have control
Over
of
your
this
levy.
5.48.
That's
And so
correct.
if my home, the assessor was out at my home, he said, I'm gonna see an increase in the value of my home.
Sure.
That's got nothing to do with now then,
No, that's.
and how we're running our city.
No.
That's the county. The Now then is responsible for the 5.8 based on today's dollars.
Yep, now then
And then-
is responsible
so-
for the $1,571,350. And how people's property tax values change,
Is-
that's how the money gets distributed. You guys are gonna get that $1,571,350, and it's just distributed amongst your property values. If commercial values stay the same and residential values go up, residents are gonna pay more and commercial's paying less. If it's the opposite, commercial pays more, residents pay less.
And that's all determined
By
outside
the
of our
assessor.
hands.
We have an
The
assessor
and all.
that
Yep.
comes in and assesses all the properties.
All right.
So-
So, and I think I mentioned this before then, so a little note for the spring newsletter is that I think we need to have a good explanation of that. How we come to what we come to and
I can
and
try
the
to-
pie chart,
Yeah,
you know, as far as what's
Yeah.
coming in, what's going out, so
Sure.
that people can.
Simplify it as
Yeah,
much as
As
possible.
much as
I will
possible,
try.
because it's,
Yeah.
I'm
It's
getting
very,
lost.
yes, it's very challenging.
So-
But this,
I think it would behoove us to have something yet this fall, when the tax notices go out, to have an opportunity for residents to come and give a presentation to say, it's a challenging thing. When the county assessor says it's challenging, and he doesn't
Yes.
fully understand it and can't fully explain it,
Right,
and the state legislature can't,
right,
it makes you wonder who does know what's going on.
right,
It's some complex formulas and
yeah.
And it does strike when we're out here now then, to have fiscal disparities compared to the 7-county area. There's so little in the 7 counties that reflects what we do out here.
Right, and that is your state legislature, that is how that is all, that is, the fiscal disparities law is legislatively set, so. And it has not changed for many, many, many years, so.
So, not to get us off track, but how does it differ then in Elk River with Sherburne County? They don't have fiscal disparities.
Right, I don't know, I don't work there and I don't know what I've never looked at their tax. I don't know how to answer that, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, don't we have a lot of our residents in Sherburne County and some of them?
All of our
in Oka?
residents are in Oka County.
Yeah.
They're in, the difference is gonna be, and this is where we may as a council wanna investigate another presentation, because when the county's gotta set their levy by the 30th too, right?
Yes,
So by September 30th, we'll know, and will the school boards have any,
yes, the school boards will have theirs done too.
so everybody will have their financial impact in by September 30th. At that point, we can take a typical home, and if we wanna take,
Yes, we
3
can
homes,
apply,
we
we
can-
can apply, the county, the school board and the
and our
city
problem
will
is
give
we
you
have
a
3
total.
school districts here. We do
Well,
have
that
one
is a
in-
problem.
Because
But
we
we
have,
can show a typical, hopefully they're close.
So for, Mr. Mayor, if we're all in Oka County, why are we paying taxes to Elk River Schools? That's Sherburne.
because the school district is Elk River. So we have 2 Anoka districts, St. Francis and Anoka Hennepin, and we have 1 Elk River district. So we've got about a third in each, probably more homes. And so when we try and figure this out, you can say, here's a typical $350,000 home in the St. Francis district, and here's one in the Elk River district, and here's one in the Anoka
But
district.
we're all in Oka County.
The
Yes.
county taxes, so
Be
you'll
the
have the
same.
city taxes, the county taxes, you'll have the rail tax, you'll have, those taxes should be consistent. The county's gonna be the same, but the school district, depending on the levies they've passed and any other bond issues they've passed,
It'll be different.
will be different.
Sure.
And typically, the school district is the highest of those.
Yeah.
And we wanna communicate that in the spring of the newsletter with a pie chart, but I think it would be helpful probably in November before we have our final tax
Sure,
presentation to say, this is what, even if we just do one
Yep.
value of 350,000
we can do that.
and figure out above or below that,
Mm-hmm,
you can percentage. But then we could do one for each of the
Sure.
school districts and we could say,
yeah.
here's how that breaks out.
And the school districts will have also, they hold, public hearings for their levies and stuff, and there's no, you're not responsible for what they are doing. It's,
No.
your responsibility is only for the city.
That's right.
But the problem is most of the residents only know us.
Right,
And we've been able to
Right.
communicate to a few business owners when they realized that the 30,000, 33,000 they were paying, not even 10% of it was coming to
right,
us.
right, yeah,
But it takes a while to calm them down.
yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
I think what would be helpful is when you look on the Anoka County Property Tax website, you just get $1. You know, $1 amount.
Sure,
When you're-
sure.
And nothing is broken down.
Right.
It would be beneficial to the residents of any county
Right.
to be able to look at that and have that breakdown right there.
And so
Because
that's what they sent out in November. It's a truth and taxation notice.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but not many people keep that. But if they go back onto the website and they look, all they see is the $1 amount, and it's not broken down. It would be a nice thing for the counties to provide that on their web.
Right. And you can
Yeah.
easily call the
Yeah.
property tax division in the county and request that,
Yeah.
so. So, and then the tax rate is calculated off of your total tax capacity and your levy and the fiscal disparities, and all of this is worked into a formula. And your tax rate is really only going up 0.3%, so it's going from 24.2% to 24.5%, which is a very, very small tax rate. For any city, it's a very small tax rate. The,
But see, there again, and not to distract us from, but when I showed this to somebody today, and all they saw was, you got a city tax rate of 24.5%? Their mind was, you're charging us 25%?
it's,
Because
right,
a city tax rate and capacity don't mean anything to
Right.
99% of the people in the
right,
city.
right,
So how do we, first of all, I think education, whatever we can do,
Yep.
whatever PowerPoints we can do for something in November,
right,
that as you show on the back page, of like communities in
Right.
Anoka County,
right,
the less the better, the lower the better.
yes,
So we are the best on this chart,
yes,
even though we've gone up 0.3%, which we
Yeah.
also can say is small or
very
minuscule.
minimal, yeah, yeah,
So again, in a 30,000 foot level, tax capacity, what does that number mean? 6 million,
that
is
is.
that in dollars?
Yes, that's in dollars, and what that is the, all the value of all the property in the city, divided by certain amounts to come up with the tax capacity value. So the,
Commercial and residential?
yeah, so the state, the legislature says that we have to multiply residential properties times 0.01% to get your tax capacity value for your residential properties, up to $500,000. And then after $500,000, we multiply any value over $500,000 times 0.0125. So in other words, if your value is higher, you're gonna end up having more tax capacity associated with your property, and that rate, that tax capacity rate, gets applied to that value. So for properties under 500,000, it's 0.01. For properties over 500,000, they pay 0.01 on the first 500 and 0.0125 on the second, anything over $500,000. Commercial properties, on the other hand, I believe our apartments are paying 1.5%. And commercials are paying, let's see here, I don't know if I have that with me here. I believe they might be paying 2%, but I'll have to look that up.
0.0?
Yeah, I think that, so you take their commercial value and you multiply it times 0.02, and that's their tax capacity value. Whereas a residential is only 0.01. So commercials are higher tax capacity values, even though the same rate is applied to it, they're paying more because their tax capacity is generally more than any residential property. This is really, it's a lot to take into, you know, for someone, I've been doing this for 25 years, and so, I get it, but it's
You
it's
know,
not
the
easy.
thing about this, and the thing I'm interested in learning more about this, because
Okay,
I run for office every 2 years.
Right, I get
And
it.
this is the biggest thing that freaks people out. They
And I
don't know how any of it works.
yeah,
And if we were to, we've never given out, you know, I've seen publications out of Oak Grove.
sure,
And AEM does these big fancy, comparing tax capacity across county.
Sure, sure.
Comparing tax rates across the county.
yep,
And showing where their residents fall in all of this.
sure,
And I don't know how much they explain it to them, but
Right.
it's always nice to say, whatever this means up here, you're down here. And they get away with it. You know, I
Right.
don't- you know, if you're up here in Centerville at 57.5%,
yeah,
and you've got only a tax capacity of 4.6,
right,
that might be a little harder explanation.
right,
But I think it would behoove us to understand it enough to at least explain.
Mm-hmm.
So you get the tax capacity by taking the value of the properties
times those percentages.
times those percentages.
And then you apply the rate, that's what a tax capacity rate is.
Okay, so you take all the values and you multiply it by either 2 or point.
1 or 1.5 or whatever the property is, yep,
And then you multiply it by
the rate.
The
And that's
rate.
how much tax you're paying for your city taxes.
and so we've got a capacity of 6 million. That formula?
Well, that's, the capacity is one thing and the rate is something else. Your capacity is calculated by taking all your properties and taking that percentage, the .01, the .015, the .0125, the .02, depending on the property. You multiply that times all your market values, and that's where you get your tax capacity. And I do not do that, the county does that for us. They calculate our tax capacity value. Because they have all the values of the properties.
There are no cookies.
No,
He's trying to turn the fans down, but
I turn the fan down.
they're up.
Right there, the first switch next to the door there, see the little slide?
no,
Right, to your left. See that slide? No, down.
On the light switch.
Next to the actual switch.
Turn that right switch off.
the county or the League of Minnesota Cities may offer a course for those interested to take to understand this process. And I believe, you know, it might be, you know, levy for dummies or whatever it is, you know. It's so that you can
Levy for
understand.
dummies.
Yeah, so that you understand it at a basic level and can, you know, explain it. Because I'm not the one, I'm not a teacher, I'm not good at explaining things, I'm trying. But there's others out there that actually have courses that they hold, and we could look in to see
So
when the League of
we'll
Minnesota
investigate that, we
Cities.
won't torture you anymore. But in that, the thing that I want to be careful of is now this is part of our packet, so residents
Yeah,
will have this.
sure,
And that's why we need to be able to explain that, no, we're not taxing you at 25%. Not you.
no,
There-
not
there's
your
a
market,
formula.
not your total market value, no.
Yes.
And it's normally for most people, they're getting taxed on 1% of their market value. So if their market value is 350,000, you're taking that 25,000 25% times $35,000, I believe, is my math right? 0.01% of 350? My math is even right there.
3,500?
And plus, it's a taxable value thrown in there too, so you have a market value and then you have a taxable value. Taxable value is calculated also. There's a,
Taxable value and a market value aren't that far apart anymore.
no, they're not that far apart, no. You're correct.
Yeah, crap.
So if you take 350,000 times 0.01, and then you apply the 24.5% to it, that's the amount of taxes that you're paying on a property.
Commander Heath, did you get that?
So, well, if it was $360,000,
Uh-huh,
it would be 3,600 and a quarter, that would be $900.
Right, much, yep. And that's what this is. This is $850 on a $350,000
Yeah.
home.
So it's darn close.
Yep. Oops.
Okay. So we just have to work on our messaging to make sure that we
Yeah,
understand it, so
and
we
I'll
can
try to
explain
come
it.
up with a
and
cheat sheet that, you know,
and that's
allows
where,
you-
yeah,
yeah.
that's where,
But-
we might be a little premature for all the details for
Right,
what we're
right.
trying to get done tonight.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. We can come up with some kind of a cheat sheet that will help you
A ton.
explain.
I mean, we can understand this, but they're not gonna understand this.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where, so it's, I don't, yeah, there's definitely details that we need to get into, and it probably is gonna help to have examples.
Sure.
Getting into the exact math.
Right.
If you're like me, to do that simple,
Right,
this is what your taxes, the city's part would be, but,
yep,
and that's where the challenges are. It's like, okay, putting a number on a piece of paper is one thing, but how do you get, if we're presenting it to the residents,
Right.
how do we get there? That's
Right.
where part of the challenge is, because they've never seen this before,
sure,
or most haven't.
sure.
Well, then you throw in the confusion of, you say 5%, but you're gonna get taxed at 10%, and then throw in the confusion of school district and county, and,
Right.
and nobody ever goes to those truth and taxation hearings.
No,
I think the school board has theirs during the day, and,
yes, I think the county does too.
and so,
Oh, no, they don't, they have theirs at
we
night.
get the brunt of it.
Yeah,
So.
Okay.
And and the page, that one right there,
oop, oop,
with the house on it.
yep, yep,
Okay, so the caution I want to have is, so we got a city tax rate increase, is what I'd say, only 0.3%, you know, to emphasize it's a small amount.
right, right,
Increase in taxes for most residential properties. And then we went through it earlier, impact factors. You're doing this because you're very familiar with it, and
Yep.
you're doing bullet points.
yep, yep,
Increase in residential property values, we don't control. Fiscal disparities, we don't control.
right.
Increase in city levy is really a minor part of that.
It's a
Our
part.
5.5 is a part, but,
Yep,
but the property values and the fiscal disparities could have as much or more to do than anything we,
and I can show that on a cheat sheet, you know, taking away any of those factors, this is what would happen if you want for future reference.
yep.
I just did not do that this
Yeah,
time.
that's another example. This is
Yep.
what it was last year, this is what is it this year,
Right, right,
not that, you know,
And the city doesn't control that.
right.
right.
And I'll talk, we
And if
have
you
a,
feel like I'm providing too much information, I can certainly cut back on what I'm providing. Because I'm
No, it
used
is
to
a good-
providing more information.
I've got a board meeting with the league this week, and one of the topics is things the cities are looking for. So this will be definitely one of the things that, how can the league help cities understand the levy process?
Sure.
The tax rate, and especially the fiscal disparities.
Yep,
You know, for those of us that are on the fringe, it's kind of like the worst of both worlds.
Yeah.
We're not close enough to the metro to have any benefits of it, but we're not far enough to greater Minnesota to get the
Right.
benefits thereof,
Right.
so.
well, and you do get benefits because the Mall of America contributes to fiscal disparities. And if we didn't have a Mall of America, we would have to, you know, we wouldn't get anything probably out of the fiscal disparity pool. So, you know, we.
And it would
you
certainly
are-
help out here to
Yeah.
be able to say that with the airport and these
Yeah.
businesses
Right,
and all of these
that
industries,
contributes to fiscal disparities, so.
it may, so. All right,
So then, going on, then you also have a recycling center, and we talked about that. We're looking at a decrease in revenues of about $4,800, and that we think is that the county aid will be going down in the future. And then our expenditures are going down by $1,650, so the city will use about $3,200 projected for 2020.
so, and again, I talked to Lori about this briefly. Do we really want to keep a recycling center going over at a loss? Do we want to pay money to recycle?
Right,
I mean, we don't know how many of our residents with curbside pickup, a lot of what's going on here is people that aren't now then residents. And if we're subsidizing that, is that something we should, I'm not gonna fight it here because I'd rather have it in here, but right now it's showing a loss.
Right.
If we can't turn that around to at least break even, is that something we as a city wanna keep paying personnel and equipment and, you know, at what point does it, because the other problem is, as we've read from other cities, that many places aren't actually recycling the stuff, they're landfilling it. So are we paying to landfill things? So that's one we will need to discuss before our final in
Yep.
December, because if we're gonna lose money on it, if we can't find a way to break even,
Mhm.
then we're not really doing our residents a service here. We may be doing other cities' services, but for all those businesses bringing in their cardboard and oil and,
And then for debt service, we have several debt service funds that we're levying for, and your total debt service levy is $192,900. And that will cover all of your debt service needs for next year in 2020.
If I may, Lori,
Yep,
I'm just trying to understand numbers again.
yep.
When I look at that 192,900 and compare that to the debt service number on the first page of the resolution,
Uh-huh.
why are they off?
I don't know why they're off.
And
that was my question, because we're almost $18,000 different.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is your debt service. The first page is the budget in the debt service funds, so what you're gonna be paying out next year for principal and interest. And the second page is actually your levy. And so you'd have to add up the 26.5, the 80,000, the 21, and the 65.4 to get to the 192.9. So you are not paying out as much principal next year as you're taking in for levy, but your principal is paid out in February of 2021. And so you need to collect the money in 2020 to pay out your principal in 2021. Are you with me? So your principal payment in 2021, in February, is going to be higher than what it is in 2020. Because in 2020, you don't have a principal payment on your new bond issue. They wait until the following year for you to have a principal payment. And you need to collect that money before February, and you don't get your tax levy until June. So you need the money in the bank before February of 2021. So you collect it in advance to pay that principal. Okay?
no, but that's okay.
Okay. So what is?
You went too fast.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
What
So
does-
the budgeted amount,
The budget is
'cause I-
only
this was one of
one,
my main questions too.
yeah,
So the budgeted amount on the first page is what we're actually going to pay out in 2020,
in principal and interest.
principal and interest. So that's the 175.65.
Right,
okay,
The 17,835
additional.
is the 192,900 that's shown on the levy side is what we're going to levy
We have to levy for
this
2020,
year
for next
to
year.
pay out in February
Levy in
2021.
2020 for 2021's first February
That's
payment.
correct.
Okay, good.
that's correct, okay. Thank you.
We just thought you were bad at math.
Yeah. I did too for a moment when I looked at that, I'm like, what?
I will tell you, when I started asking these questions of Lori today, she kind of like, it's been a long day. I'll ask Lori.
Okay, great.
It was a look, she didn't say it.
It was a look,
I'll call Lori,
yeah,
she can explain.
okay. And then we're also budgeting for the capital project funds, and as you can see there in the building fund, we talked about doing some improvements at the fire station. In order to do that, we're transferring $125,000 from the general fund into building fund.
All right, so that's another one that I had a misunderstanding on, I'm not sure about the rest of the council. We have a, on the back page, page 12 of the resolution. Oh, no, that's not it. It's in this one. In the financials we got today. we have a building capital improvement account. So prior to you guys fixing things, we thought we had a fire station improvement fund. It was separate from any other building, and now that
Right.
we had a building capital improvement fund, because a couple of years ago, we had some furnaces go out in the wintertime and nobody knew we were gonna get money, so we said we should have a fund just for building
Right,
upkeep and repair.
right.
So we started that, and we put $40,000 into that. And then right above that is the Burns Town Center. We sold the property over here and gained, netted 52,000, which we then intended to go into this capital building fund. Spent about 12,000 on some water softeners and iron filters. So we thought we had about $90,000, 80-some thousand dollars to go into regular buildings, separate from what we thought we had transferred over to a fire station improvement. So the addition on the fire station, we thought we had, my recollection is we had 2018 and 2019, we're transferring $50,000 a year into that fund. We then found out the building was gonna be more than that, and so in our discussion, my understanding in August, when we had our second discussion here, was the $75,000. I wasn't sure where we were coming from, but we're getting $75,000 somewhere to put in with that $100,000 and coming up with money for the fire station expansion. I don't see any of that here. I see the sale of the lot, I see the $29,000 left over from our building fund, which puts us at the 80,000 that we thought we had.
So currently we combined your, what was it, I don't know, what was the building fund called? Well, you had sale of property of $77,681. You also transferred $40,000 into a fund for fire. So those two together equal a net source of $117,000 in 2018. Right
The
now,
sale of the property only netted 52, because we still owed 25,000 on it.
well, maybe that's the net, that was the net beginning cash was 20 minus 25,000 here. So your net sources, your ending cash balance at the end of 2018 was $92,000 in both those capital funds. And in 2019, you've spent $12,300, and so now you're down to $80,000 in cash for your building fund. And in order to spend $170,000, you needed to transfer another $125,000 in here, with the caveat that you're going to constantly transfer money in going forward so that you'll have money available for future building improvements. This is something that can be totally talked about in the next few months. This has nothing to do, this is all a proposed budget, this is all a huge proposal. It has nothing to do with the levy, it impacts the budget, and can be bigger discussions in the future. So regardless of what we're budgeting now, those budgets can be changed. It has nothing, it's not what needs to be permanently approved as far as a preliminary levy.
So I guess the only reason I would bring it up at this point was the city's transferring $125,000 from the general fund to accomplish these improvements.
Right.
Where did we get that in the general fund?
You have capital, you have reserves in the general fund?
So we're taking that out of the 45, the unreserved fund balance?
No, actually, you're levying for it.
Levying for the 125.
Yeah, you're levying for it right
Back
now.
to page 12
Yeah.
on the back.
You're not using any reserves, you're levying for it, it's part of the levy.
Part of the budget.
Your revenues equal your expenditures.
Okay, so with that said, if we didn't want to build the fire station, we're gonna levy $125,000 for some building project.
You can always reduce your levy, you cannot increase it. And so this is including that, and you can utilize those funds for the fire, or you can utilize them for another project, or you can reduce your levy in the future, but you cannot increase it. So this is part of your levy and allows you the flexibility to change your mind in the future, but without doing it in the first place, you cannot increase your levy to cover any of these costs.
That's what we were going to do. We settled on that during the budget meetings, and if we needed to make any changes after that, we can do that as long as, but the dollar amounts fit. We can't levy more, right?
That's correct.
If we need to juggle things between now and December, is levying the 5 versus 5.5% enough?
You can always reduce that number. So along with the building fund at 170 that we proposed for budgets, we have road improvement fund improvements of about 1.2 million, and you can see I've included the names of the roads that we're looking at improving in 2020. I've also included $50,000 in your capital improvement fund in case you want to do some park capital improvements in 2020. You have the resources there, the money is there to do those improvements. We just had not decided on exactly what it was, and you have time to make those adjustments for 2020. And then in the equipment replacement plan, you are transferring $62,500 from the general fund and for future equipment purchases, along with this year, or in 2020, the fire department wanted some mobile computers and some turnout gear for fire in 2020. So here is a picture of an average, what do we pay monthly? So an average property in the city of Now then pays $70 a month in taxes. And what do they get for that? They get police and fire protection, they get street maintenance and plowing, they get park maintenance, they get planning and inspections, they get street improvements, they get equipment replacement, they get administration, and they get debt retirement, all for that $71. Compare that to your cable.
There you go. Now you finally get something everybody can adjust to.
Right. Not everybody has cable out here.
Oh, okay. Nobody has cable.
Because they nobody out here has it.
Yeah,
Dish.
we got dish,
Compare that
direct
to dish.
TV.
So when you say average property, what?
I think I'm using 350,000.
Yeah.
And here, this last page is comparing similar populated cities in Anoka County, showing their tax capacity values, which is the number on top, and what their tax capacity rates are. The closest one to you is Linwood Township. And the values I have here are for 2019. I don't have their current values, but yours is for 2020. Theirs is for 2019.
Wow.
And similar to what we had was presented to us last year.
Sure.
Back to the 50,000 we've got in Parks Capital.
Yes.
Is that something, again, we're levying for?
Nope.
It's just coming out of our
You have the money available in your park fund.
200 or whatever the CD we've got for parks?
Yep, yep.
Good job.
I'm glad, you have a lot of good questions. I know this is all new, so, hopefully, I know we'll get through it this year, so.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
I would like to make a motion to approve resolution 2019-60 relating to the adoption of the proposed 2020 budget and certifying the preliminary property tax levy collectible in 2020 and setting a public meeting date of December 10th, 2019 at 7 o'clock.
I second it.
A motion and a second. I do have a question since it's part of the resolution moved here. page 8.
Okay. And actually, the resolution is only 2 pages, that's what we'll send to the county, we won't be
Okay.
sending them all the detail, but.
There's a couple, I didn't want to nitpick typos and stuff.
Yeah,
We can clean
yeah,
those
and
up
that,
later.
what you're gonna ask me is a typo, that was my
Okay.
summation. So there's
The
another, in
expenditures?
addition to that $36,719 change, there's another $1,000 that's in there for, the county actually charges you an administrative fee for your special assessments and your levy process. So when they distribute their taxes to us, they charge you money for doing that.
Well,
And it-
gone then, what the heck?
So that's what I missed.
Okay,
That should be in there. So the 37,000 is the correct number.
all right.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Rainville?
we're at discussion point, correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I would just say that, as the mayor has said earlier, you know, we used to do the nitty gritty, you know, which is, it's kind of nice not to have that. But we've been provided much more information. Some of it is going over my head.
Yeah.
Because we're getting more detail
Sure.
than we ever had before, you know? And that's gonna take a while to sink in.
Yes,
And,
yes.
Well, and it's a little harder to keep straight too when you combine funds, because, you know, again, in my boxes up here, I've got, I can keep track of, I knew what was in this equipment fund and that equipment fund, and not to dwell on the past, but it was important that we kept those boxes because it wasn't always understood that way.
Sure,
And so now, again, we're building this trust with Lori that
yep,
it's in a pool, and you know what we want to do with that pool. And you're saying, like, we thought we had money transferred to a fund, and we don't know where it is now.
right.
It either didn't get transferred, or that fund got gobbled up somewhere else, or, so we're learning to, as you learn it better, and you can communicate to us, as here's what we said, and here's what we're doing.
Right,
We're just used to having the details in the boxes and smaller, understandable things.
sure,
And as you've seen going through our numbers,
right.
it's pretty surprising that we got a AA+.
No, no, it's not.
No, I mean,
It's
we've
based
done,
on-
we've done good
Yeah.
things, but it
Yes,
hasn't been
yes.
because we've been aces at accounting.
Right, and I think the promise of doing some new financial management tools, the 5-year capital planning and a 5-year equipment replacement plan, they really like that kind of stuff, bonds.
Well, yeah, so,
So, we'll get into the
Yeah, 5-year
nitty-gritty of
general-
that.
the
Yeah.
general fund plan.
Yes, yes.
All right, any other comments?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm really impressed with all that was explained, and I think you did a really nice job. I mean, I feel like this is a lot of things over my head, but still, it was written in a way that I could peruse this, and some of it I could actually understand it.
Good.
And so I think that was really well done.
Oh, good, thank you.
So thank you for your hard work, both
Yes.
of you,
Yeah,
and we appreciate it.
thanks. Hopefully it gets easier, more understanding.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, just one thing. We are going to try to simplify this for our residents, right?
I will recommend to the council that we investigate through the league or the county assessor or something, so we understand it better, but then I think working with Lori and Lori to come up with a presentation that puts it in layperson's language, here's what you're seeing.
The comparisons to me are so helpful.
Yeah,
Because as soon as someone sees that, I mean, even if my taxes are going up, when I compare it with everybody around me, all of a sudden, it's not quite such a bitter pill to swallow.
well, and that assuages some people.
No.
You know, the fact that other people are going up more than us never makes me feel that much better.
Okay.
But I think Lori's explanation of the
Disparity.
process by which the disparities are calculated. And that comparison where you can say, last year, here's what you got. Now, who in the world can explain it? I'd like to have that person with us when they can say, why last year we got this much
Yeah.
and paid that much, and this year it's so significantly different.
Yeah.
You know, again, we have to have that other person here to explain that, but to have that comparison saying, this is why, and this is what's been missing, because residents have never had that.
Right,
To
right.
say, this is why, even though your city taxes fully burdened only went up 5.5%, you're paying 10% because property values, which they don't determine, and disparities, which they don't determine, are this much different. And if we have the assessor come in here and say, here's the property taxes all the way across, here's your residential, here's your commercial, here's the rate at which they're taxed. And those things are all very helpful, because then people can make decisions. Yeah, if I want to live in a $2 million house, I'm going to get hit at this rate. And if we bring in more businesses, this is how it's going to impact our taxes.
Yeah,
And
that's,
those are things that are missing when everybody just says, you know, don't do anything.
No.
And there's something we just can't control. It's been a frustration over the years. We think we give a 0% increase and the taxes go up.
Sure.
So
You
I
need to
think
grow.
that we should, Lori, if things are starting to calm down, we should look at that for November. And let's talk about how we can get those peoples together and present with Lori a layperson's version of what we've got with comparisons and charts.
Mr. Mayor, I bet, I imagine that a lot of unhappy people never come to a presentation.
I think that if we communicated effectively that we're going to present a tax education seminar in conjunction, because these statements will be coming out in November. And so they're gonna have questions, we're gonna offer a seminar that if they don't come, it will be online and we can refer people to it.
Okay.
I think if we do a good job in presentation, and I think if we can somehow get our slides incorporated into the YouTube, I think we would go a long way towards, we're not gonna make anybody happy if their taxes go up, but I think if we can explain it, it's never been attempted in this city.
Yeah.
And from other elected officials I've talked to, I don't think it's been attempted anywhere. Like I said, when the county assessor just shook his head, and I don't think anybody's doing a good job. So I'm gonna talk with the league this week at the board meeting
Yeah, I think
and
they
see
do
what they
have
can
a,
provide.
I think they have a,
But back to that, any other questions on this? We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
thank you.
All right, you were right, Lori, we don't have to have another meeting. But we will have another meeting to explain it all.
Yeah.
And then we can then take a look at, depending on our fire board meeting next week. what we want to do.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Yes, good night.
Hopefully we didn't,
Scare me?
I don't think you scare easy. I'm just guessing. You've been in this business a long time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Planning and zoning, we have a variance request.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Matter Stockton, sorry.
That's okay. I didn't know if you were looking for something or what.
No, I,
First, thanking Mr. Reynolds for waiting through the presentation and your patience. So thank you.
Seminar.
But you may have learned something.
Yeah, and that we're only responsible for a part of it.
So, planning and zoning, talked about Mr. Reynolds' variance request. and determined that he does in fact meet the variance criteria outlined in our zoning ordinance. Given the irregular shape of his lot, the existence of a wetland, and the setback of his home, the septic system in the rear yard, and proximity to his southern lot line, he really has no other place to put an accessory building other than in the front yard. He was requesting a 90-foot setback from center line. Planning and zoning decided that he should be a minimum of 20 feet from his front property line. So given the variable right-of-way width there, it varies between 75 to 85 feet. So he will have that building between around 95 to 100 feet from the center line, as it was approved by planning and zoning. So it references the 20 feet from his front property line. So they recommended approval by a vote of 6-0. Anyone have any questions or additional thoughts about this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville?
Ms. Stockman, would you, again, and I sat through the planning and zoning, so originally we were looking at a 90-foot setback,
Yep,
okay,
from center line,
from
right.
center line. And then planning and zoning brought it back another 20 feet?
No, not
Or
a total
that's
20 feet, but 20 feet from the property line.
20 feet.
So see, if the right-of-way varies between 75 to 85, he was only gonna be, say 15 feet from
Okay.
the property line. But it was, I believe, Mr. Wagner that suggested, let's go 20 feet because our minimum setback for any side is 20. And that made some sense. And then they all concurred with that. So they really only pushed it about an additional 5 feet away. But I was out there and, there is a steep slope along Baugh there. The county has plenty of right-of-way. I talked to the county engineer who also concurred that a minimum of 90 feet from the center line was acceptable to them. So unless you have concerns otherwise, that would be my recommendation.
So that would be going back to what was originally,
Well, so he's about 95 feet would be the minimum from
The center line.
the center line of Baugh, right? Because on the southern part of his lot, the right-of-way width is about 75 feet. And then as you move north, it gets a little wider. But the county has no plans to acquire any additional right-of-way. And his intent was to kind of tuck it into the trees there. And if you look at the pictures again, this view is from Baugh Street. So the building would be tucked back into here as opposed to being in front of his house somewhere. And then this is kind of the clearing there where he's been storing some outdoor storage.
in the decision by the planning and zoning, it also talked about changing direction of it,
The angle.
the angle.
They did talk about
Yeah.
how rotating it
Yeah.
could give you additional setback, yes, from the right-of-way. And I forget what the response was, Mr. Reynolds. You said you'd be willing maybe to turn it a little? You didn't want it exactly facing south?
Right.
Yeah, a lot of it depends on how far from center line it really have to be. If it's 90 to 95 feet, I'd rather it be parallel with the house. But if it's going to get pushed out even farther, then I would consider turning it a little bit if needed to save room. I just don't want to push it any farther in front of it.
Mr. Reynolds, you have no problem with the Item 4 there, the building material, matching that, building material coordinating with the house.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's metal pole barn. It's exactly what you would expect, like every other pole barn in the county.
Well, it's just that the condition here was the exterior of the building, such as roofing, siding, trim, must be similar in color and materials to the principal structure as well as the roof pitch and other elements. Is that a challenge?
It's all natural color.
Yeah.
He hasn't submitted anything for building permit, so we haven't seen what the proposed materials are. But if need be, you can,
So that's something as part of the building permit you and Andy will watch.
correct.
Okay. Anything else, Liz, that we should know?
Nope, that's all I have.
Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Bryan?
still, how much would rotating that even get feet-wise? I mean, if you
It's hard to know, you might gain about, it depends, I guess, how much you rotate
You would
it.
have to, I'm just imagining a rectangle, you'd have to rotate it quite a bit before you start getting,
Yeah, I mean, to make it parallel with Baugh would, you know, or to that front lot line would, you'd have to rotate it, you know, whatever, 45 degrees, but
Your door is on the narrow end?
Yes.
Well, you know, I think the fact that he wants to keep it from getting in front of his house and what little we might gain on the rotation from Baugh there, as long as we, you know, he's maintaining the screening there. I think if it works better for him to leave it at that, and we're with the planning and zoning agreed that we've got the setback necessary, the county's worked with it, I think. If it causes more hassle than benefit, I'm okay with leaving it as proposed.
by having the additional 20 feet.
Well, it's actually the additional 5 feet, I think, but depending on the setback on the county road there, but. did you
20
say we
feet from the property line.
25, yeah, 20 feet from the property line.
Property line, right.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
I'd like to see it as originally proposed, and no change in the setback.
Oh, 90 from the
The
center
90,
line?
yeah. Which leaves him pretty much where he is right now.
Is that 20 feet from the property line?
It's more like 15. I think he, you know, between the 15 and the 20, he can make it work because the space there is big enough. I don't think he'll lose any trees. Additional trees, you know, past what's been kind of cleared for the structure, so it's up to you.
You agree, Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, and one of the questions I was going to ask is, I know that the right-of-way changed from 75 to 85. At what, I mean, when we're out there looking at that, how do I know exactly? I've never seen any drawing at all that shows me where that lessening or gaining, or whatever direction you're going, where that really begins and ends. I mean, I take off myself at 91 feet.
I think the county does have some maps. I know when Old Viking was county road, if you go down Old Viking, it goes from, I mean, it varies wildly as you go down there. And there are maps that show it. But I've never seen it designated along the right-of-way, but they do have maps, because I made the mistake of putting a campaign sign one time. And somebody knew exactly where the right-of-way was, and I got nailed. I wasn't 5 minutes away, and somebody
I
called.
think that's just my only confusion, is I don't know exactly where the right-of-way is at any given point on that road, because it varies from one end to the other. So if it's where it sits now, we're at 91 feet to be exact, which is 21 feet from what I believe to be the property line, but again, it widens or or narrows, depends on how you look
yeah.
at it.
You're on a curve.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly, I feel good about where it's at, you know, like I said, Liz and I took a look at it. It would work exactly where we said, right, like 90 feet, 91 feet.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm just talking.
What I would recommend is that we, with Andy and I and Mr. Reynolds, check it again, and we could even ask the county if they would send somebody out, because they might, at no charge, just send somebody out to be sure we're outside of that line.
So with that understanding that between the request for county's help and the understanding that we want to be 20 feet off the line, we can make this work. So all parties agree it can work. If that's the case, I would entertain a motion. I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation as presented by the P and Z.
I second it.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
okay, I'm just trying to clarify, so I understand it. So we think right now we're 20 feet off the line, so right now we think we're in there? Okay. And that we wouldn't have to move it, and that's where you planned on putting it anyway?
Yeah, it's within 5 to 7, 8 feet of where he initially,
Yeah. We had to move it forward a little bit, but it's still out of the view of the home. It's still tucked in the woods a little bit, which is what we wanted with the screening, so I feel very good. We can put it right there, I feel pretty good.
So it's your understanding, you've met what planning and zoning recommended, and it's where you want it. And so you can go ahead with what planning and zoning recommended, and we're good to go. All right.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainbow.
we talked about having the county come out and give you the 85, 75. I would prefer that they do that first before we incur any additional, or the resident incur any additional charges of Andy getting involved. At this point, it's just placement. Let's find out.
Andy typically wouldn't get involved in
So
placement.
he shouldn't, but Liz said that have Andy come out and look at it too, so.
but that's part of whoever he sends out for a footing inspection, they have to know.
Correct.
Oh,
Well,
okay, pardon me.
but prior to even that, let's have the county come out, I would assume at no charge to the resident, and let's see what the county says first.
Okay.
And then work within that. I don't wanna see him incur any additional charges
Okay.
by our contracted staff, so.
Okay, great.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
my question would be, does doing that affect Mr. Reynolds' timeline?
Unfortunately, no.
No.
Unfortunately, no. It's been in the process for about a year or so,
So if this had to be pushed another month because of that?
But,
so let's hope it doesn't.
yeah.
If
I'm
the
just
co-
getting, I'm just trying to get the roof on it before the snow falls.
Yes.
I can't imagine it would
Well,
take.
you might have
the
3
county-
weeks.
I can't imagine the county would take more than a week to get out there and look at it.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand how that would affect them, how your suggestion affects the motion.
But it doesn't, other than I just don't want,
Unnecessary charge.
and unnecessary charges. That was just in the
She's
comment.
just looking out for
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Reynolds.
don't want to have
Okay.
him
Okay.
get a bill from
Yes.
Andy when we can hopefully get that information for free from the county. So,
Okay.
So, I don't know, it's kind of an extra effort, but can we know when the county goes out there? I mean, just say, yeah, county did it, and
Well, I'm just assuming that they would send somebody out to help.
let's say this, let's say they say, no, we don't do that. Can you just go ahead?
Yes, I am confident that we can stand in the field, 2 people with a
Yeah.
measuring tape, and base it off of the center line, because, our aerial photos are very accurate.
All right, so we'll ask the county, and if they can respond quickly, get it done, and we move ahead. If they say, no, we don't do it, you get out there with your tape measure and make it happen.
Figure it out.
Okay? All right, any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion?
all right.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience. Good luck on your building.
You're welcome, thank you.
Let us know when the barn dance is. All right, consultant checklist. All right, state statute requires 4 things to be checked off.
Upon request.
Huh?
Upon request.
On
Upon request, right?
on request. Would it make sense for us just to use this anyway? We've been asking for this as a city, so there's no surprises. People come in later and say, boy, I didn't know it was gonna be this much. So the state statute says upon request. Would it make sense for us to say, by the way, how much are we adding to the process to say, here's a checklist so we know that you've been informed of potential charges?
Mr. Mayor?
Planner Stockman?
Yeah, I don't mind doing it. I do believe we could have a, sort of like a form letter that would get attached to this, which would state what they've submitted, the escrow amount. And we, of course, don't accept the application until it's complete anyway. And then what I would like to do is list the things that would typically or could make a project cost go up. Revisions needed or, delays by, additional meetings, whatever it might be. Just kind of try to generate some, and educate people at the beginning, which,
Worst case scenario.
So
Yeah.
what you're suggesting, or what you, if I'm interpreting, we meet statute 471.462 by creating our own form letter that incorporates these things in addition to the criteria that you were just mentioning.
right, because most of our applications are, when they come in, the $1,480. And, I would typically know by what I have, the conversation we've had with the resident or applicant, what the intent is, if it's out of the ordinary, if it's something we've typically approved before or not. So I think, yeah, it would be fairly simple to move forward that way. And I'd be okay with that, and then if you want people to sign this as part of the whole application process, I mean, that could be done when they come in and pay their fees.
I think it makes sense. Also the 60-day rule, it clearly states the application is not complete for purposes of the 60-day rule until all 4 requirements are met. So if they're holding up just because they applied but they didn't complete the application, 60 days doesn't start until the application is complete.
Correct.
And I don't know if we've actually adhered to that rigorously in the past or not. But generally, when they apply is when we start the 60-day rule, right?
Generally, but, I have given people a break if they're, let's say they're waiting on their surveyor to get a plan to me a day late or something. But I have to know by less than a week after that deadline because I have to get the notice in the paper, so it can't be that late anyway. But if it's a big project, yeah, you gotta have it all up front or you just won't have time to review it.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
probably a question more from Lori. Would this just be something we could include in the application?
I think that's what Planner Stockman is saying. It
Yeah.
would go right with the
That will just tweak the application to have it there?
She would tweak the cover letter, and this would be included.
Okay, there's a cover letter. Okay, there's a cover letter that goes along with the application. All right, cool.
We'll keep, I think it'll be separate, but kind of in that packet we give to people.
Okay.
So can we then be copied on that when that's put together, and then we'll know what people are getting?
Sure, or if you want it on next month's meeting, we could
Yeah.
do that.
That's fine.
Okay.
But as of August 1st, we have to start using this.
If they request.
If they
it,
request it.
Yeah, yeah.
Most people wouldn't know to request
You
it.
wouldn't know about it.
They request it after the fact.
You know, the majority of the people ask me anyway, well, what do you think it's gonna cost me?
Well, and I think it's good to give them an estimate, because we've had some of those run-ins in the past where I didn't know it was gonna cost this much.